Now, maybe there's some people who would want to look at me and say I'm overly optimistic. Or maybe you would even spin that a little bit and say naively optimistic. But it still hurts my heart a little bit that we're going out here and we're seeing Terence Crawford versus David Avanesyan instead of seeing Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. I really thought that fight was going to happen, man. I still look back on it and I really thought it was going to happen. I really thought that we were finally going to get that. But boxing just has a way of hurting your heart, just has a way of bringing you up and then letting you down. Right? Just has a way of almost giving you what you want, making you think you're going to get it, only to disappoint you once again. But look, I'm not here to be a negative Nancy about the situation, not here to focus on what we don't have. I want to think about what we do have. So let's think about the silver lining of the whole thing and say, hey, we do get to see Terence Crawford fight. I'm a big fan of his. I think the man is incredibly talented. I think he brings a lot to the table. He's still young enough. He's still in his prime that if we see him fight Errol Spence Jr. in 2023, my feelings won't be hurt. I won't feel like this is a fight where we saw these guys' primes pass. I won't look back on this as though it was a Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao thinking I'd have loved to see the fight 6 years ago. So be that as it may, we get to see Terence Crawford versus David Avanesyan. Now it's funny. When I first heard this fight get announced, I was like most people. I thought, man, who is David Avanesyan? Where did this guy come from? Where they pulling this name out of a hat? And why is he fighting Terence Crawford on December 10th? So I jump on BoxRec, I check out the man, I look at his record, and I think, he fought Shane Mosley. He fought Lamont Peterson. Like, wait a second, man. Those are obviously not, those guys aren't no-name bums. And then you remembered, he fought Shane Mosley when he had 9 losses already in his career. He fought Shane Mosley in late 2016, early 2017, something along those lines. This wasn't the Shane Mosley who was 35-0 with 32 knockouts. This wasn't the same Shane Mosley who went up and beat Oscar De La Hoya. Not the same guy. Shane Mosley, one of the sayings that I found to be true for the most part is that all great fighters have one last great fight in them. Shane Mosley's last great fight was against Antonio Margarito. Man, that was when Antonio Margarito was the boogeyman. He had just went out there and put it on Miguel Cotto to win the title. People were scared of him. Shane Mosley was, he was like putting this comeback together, and he's like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do it. And a lot of people, myself included, thought, what is this old man thinking? What is Shane Mosley thinking? What does he think he's going to do against this young, hungry, just monster? He's just getting fed to him. It's over, right? Not much hope for Shane Mosley in that situation. Lo and behold, come fight night, we see this whole debacle unfold. Nazim goes out there and he just uncovers what can only be called disgusting. The man had loaded gloves, or he was attempting to load his gloves. And when you're talking about a sport like boxing and what can develop, we've all seen the horror stories, we've seen the ESPN specials of guys getting killed, even dying later on because of things like that, dude. It's just horrific, So he ends up getting caught. Then he goes out there and, in very poetic justice, just gets smashed by Sugar Shane Mosley, right? Just gets absolutely destroyed. It was the last great fight, in my opinion, for Shane Mosley, but it wasn't his last fight. Fought a lot more times going on down the line, and eventually goes out there and ends up fighting Avanesyan and ends up getting a loss. And you look at that fight with David Avanesyan, and I think it was a picture-perfect example of what he likes to do. I mean, the man's from Russia, and he fights with what most people would consider to be, in a lot of ways, an Eastern European style. I mean, he's not quite as stiff. He's not quite as straight up. But, dude, he fights behind this high guard. He fights in straight lines. He ideally likes to work behind this jab and get things going off of it and use those straight punches. I mean, you look at what he did against Mosley. He controlled with the jab. When he's able to control with the jab, when he's able to come forward and do what he wants, when he's able to apply pressure at times, not crazy, but things get going. Fast forward to the Lamont Peterson fight. He can't get past Lamont Peterson's jab. For the most part, that's why he lost the fight. From the very first round, we saw Lamont Peterson come out as the taller, longer, bigger man and dominate with the jab. I mean, and that was it, dude. It was like he didn't have any more wrinkles up his sleeves. Goes out there and gets smoked a little while later by Kavalikas. Sure, I'm murdering his name now. I can't remember exactly, but dude's a puncher, and he went out there and put it on him. I mean, look, Terence Crawford is incredibly talented. A guy who just fights behind a high guard with very little head movement. I mean, he's got a little bit of upper body movement, a little bit of head movement, but not too much. Goes in straight lines, doesn't cut the ring off well, doesn't control the distance great, doesn't have, exceptionally fast hands, doesn't have exceptionally good combination punching, doesn't have great power. Like, what does this dude bring to the table that Shawn Porter didn't bring to the table? A guy that Terence Crawford stopped in his last fight. I mean, let's just think about it in a very basic fashion like that. Does he have a better jab than Shawn Porter? Is he more aggressive? Does he have faster hands? Is he more explosive? Does he work angles better? Does he control the distance better? Does he fight off the back foot better? Or does he set traps and use great feints? I mean, what exactly is it that he's going to do that Terence Crawford hasn't seen? And oh, by the way, Terence Crawford may as well be the man with 1,000 faces. Because, see, that's one of the keys to his game. That's one of the things that he does so well is he goes out there and he can constantly switch it up. He can constantly make the needed adjustments, whether it's just one in the fight, whether it's round to round. He can play off of what you're giving him. He sits back and likes to take it all in. You want to be aggressive? Great. He can fight off the back foot and he can counter you. He can come right over the top of whatever you're doing with that 74-inch reach. Great timing. Fast hands. He can pot shot you. He can work combinations. You want to sit back? Good. He knows how to come forward. Not known for the jab, but he's got a good one. When he wants to use it, it's there. When he wants to go to the body, he can. When he wants to come forward, take that half step back, and then counter you, great. He can do it all. Like I said, that's one of the keys to the man's game. It's how good, it's how versatile he is. It's how much he can switch things up. A man who fights with a high guard, who moves in straight lines, doesn't have exceptional anything. I mean, it's just not going to work. And look, this isn't a secret. We all see it's going down. Everybody pretty much figured out this was going to happen. The odds makers got this one at about minus 1,400. Overwhelming favorite. Overwhelming favorite. The only question is what's going to happen next? What's going to happen once Terence Crawford comes out there and basically stops this guy in about 8 rounds? Because that's what I'm thinking. 8, maybe 9 rounds, goes out there, turns the lights out. Show over. Gets on the mic. What's he going to do? He's going to call out Errol Spence. I'm sure he's going to say he wants that fight. We all know that. He's been calling for it for a long time. I get it. The fight didn't happen. He's got a lot of haters. There's a certain group of people out there, and I think it's a large group, that are blaming him for not making the fight. And I perfectly understand that. Now, I don't know exactly why it didn't happen. I mean, he said that the reason the fight wasn't happening was because he wasn't getting what he was deserving because of the fact that Al Heyman was basically blocking the fight because he was trying to make all this money off it and blah, blah, blah. Oscar De La Hoya came out there and said, this is what I've been saying about Al Heyman forever. This is how he does business. This is why he's so difficult. He's blocking all these fights. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. I don't really know. Or maybe everybody's looking at it and saying, Terence Crawford has never been known as a guy who wants to make these big fights. He's the guy who's not showing the motivation. It's his fault. Maybe that's the truth too. I don't really know. Personally, I don't believe that Terence Crawford or Errol Spence are scared. I believe that both of these men, for legacy reasons, really, I think they do want this fight. I think Errol Spence is a dog. I think he's game. I think he really wants to make it happen. But here's the thing. He could really want to make it happen, and Al Heyman could be, just gumming up the works in the sense of making things very difficult and trying to be greedy and not pay out the money to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford could be very demanding on one end and really want things and want the books open, and people could be saying that makes it difficult because it's maybe a non-traditional form of negotiations. I don't really know. I have no idea, to be perfectly honest with you. What I do know is I just want the fight to happen. I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. I want the fight to happen. I want it to happen before these men both get old. I want it to happen while they're still in their primes. For legacy purposes. I mean, think about the fights that we've seen historically, and then think about the fights that we've missed. Right? I'll just go back to Mayweather-Pacquiao. Yes, the fight happened, but everybody knows that fight didn't happen when those men were in their prime. Now, I believe it's perfectly understandable to say that Floyd Mayweather would have done exactly the same thing 6-7 years earlier to Pacquiao. Or maybe you think that something different would have happened. The point is, we'll never know. The point is, we didn't get that fight when both those men were in their prime. That was taken from us. It can never be recreated. It can never be redone. Right? We'll never get to see what that looks like. Imagine if that would have been the case with like a Hagler Hearns or a Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, something along those lines. Imagine if that would have been the case. Think back about all these great fights that we've seen and how easily that they could have just never materialized and disappeared. You know, it's unfortunate when that happens. Now, nevertheless, I'm hoping that doesn't happen with this one, but it is what it is. Terence Crawford's going to go out there and smoke this dude. He's, like I said, I think he ends it in about 8-9 rounds. And then we'll see what he says on the mic afterwards. Fully expect him to call out Errol Spence. Will that fight materialize? Will that develop? I don't know. Errol Spence has one planned. It'll have to be after that. And again, you can call me naively optimistic. You can call me overly optimistic. But I'm going to hope for that fight to happen until it finally gets made. So let me know what you guys think. How do you think this one ends? Is there any chance of some ring rust? Is Avanesyan going to actually find a way to kind of bring something and throw a little, upset the apple cart a little bit? I mean, I don't even want to come out there and say that he's going to figure out a way to get the win because I can't even see a way for him to do it. If you're out there, if you could pick Avanesyan to win this fight, please go down in the comments and tell me how he's going to do it. Tell me what it's going to look like. Is he going to be able to work behind the jab all night and just figure out a way to confuse Crawford and find out a way to get the win? Like, tell me what it's going to look like when he gets the win. I can't even picture how it's going to happen. No disrespect to the man. I just can't see it. But let me know what you guys think.